Hi, welcome to Mindful Conversations. My guest today is Tim David. We're asking him on a second time. He wrote this book, Magic Words. That's how I met him. But what we're going to talk about today is true influence and also his other book, The 4 Levels of Influencing People. So thanks for coming back.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
How did I influence you to drive 3 hours to come here?
I'll tell you, after the success of the first episode, upgraded my suit. I'm feeling it was a no-brainer. You had to come back.
The truth is, we locked the building. You couldn't leave. So I know the story. You came out with this book, True Influence, the magic, and I love how you tied in magic there. The magic of human connection.
Right.
And then I think I actually got the first copy. If I remember correctly, you were doing something.
That's right.
That
was you. That's
I
right.
got the first copy. You signed it.
The first copy.
The very first copy.
Right. My first proof.
Exactly.
Went to you because of...
You did some contest.
It was a giveaway. Yeah, it was a giveaway.
It was a giveaway.
Of some kind, yeah.
So I get the book, and then
wow,
I think you...
That's funny.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
And then you announced how long after that you were not going to print this anymore?
The book was only out for 4 months.
4 months.
That was it.
And then you said you're not going to produce this anymore, and what happened? Tell us the story.
Well, it's still available on Amazon right now for a couple $100s a copy.
Is it really?
Nobody's buying it for that, but
right.
It's Amazon's algorithms because there's no supply.
I see.
The prices have been going up. But what ended up happening was there is a company by the name of True Influence LLC that had sent a very friendly message, and then an email, and then a voicemail, and then a
knock at the door.
Well, no, a cease and desist letter.
Yeah.
So they were concerned that it would, a brand infringement or what have you. So I talked to a few lawyers, several actually specializing. Some of my speaker friends, author friends, were able to get me in touch with the people I needed to talk to. And they reassured me, you're fine, you're protected because of this and that. There's a little weird thing that you're like 99% fine. You're probably, it's like maybe 95. There's a weird wording in the thing, in the state that they're in, so you're like 93% fine. Like, you shouldn't really worry about it.
Well, the more they tell you not to worry.
Exactly, it was like
you're just
the doubt
worrying.
was increasing in my mind.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much the element of risk, or the quantity of risk. It was the quantity of impact. Should something, should I not be fine? It was severely just, you don't want to breach a contract or infringe on someone's brand or what have you. So the decision was made partly for that reason, and also the perfectionist in me thought, this is just an opportunity to make a better book.
So that's how you were thinking.
I'm going to be able to make a much better book. This was, it was a little bit rushed to meet deadline. I mean, is the best way to put it. There was even like some typos in the final print. So I'm like, even if I just clear the typos, I'll feel a little better, because once it's out and it's forever. And as I learned, the process of taking a book down and republishing under a different title is very involved, but worth it.
But that's what you did, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what that's what this book here is sort of the final finished product with a new title, a bunch of new sections, and it really, at the end of the day, really is a better book.
But what I admire about you and what I admire about the process is most people, maybe it's just me speaking, if I spent all this time writing this book and I got this letter, I think I'd be devastated. But you went through the process and you saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I first ignored it like it was some spam email. It took a little while for me to acknowledge that this is something serious, and I probably should look into it. And like I said, over the process of the 4 months that the book was out, I decided to make the change.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So tell us about this. It's called The 4 Levels of Influencing People. It's different in feel. I don't know if the pages are the same, but it's definitely you. But why did you come up with this?
A reader did.
Oh, a reader
did.
It
was, I don't want to say it was another contest, but a reader that came up. We were really struggling with titles going back and forth, and I like to involve my readers in the process. As you know, you were part of that contest.
Yeah.
I do all kinds of different things to engage readers, not as any kind of marketing technique, although it helps. It's more about feedback from the people who are going to buy this book, read this book, benefit from this
Right.
book. Plus, they also contributed a lot of great stories of impossible influence. The idea behind this book is, after Magic Words came out, they asked me to do all sorts of things. Can you help me to influence? Oh man, I'm a poker player. I'm on the World Series of Poker Tour. I want to get from number 4 to number 1. I want you to influence. I want to be able to influence my opponents to think that I'm giving a tell that isn't a tell. It's a trick tell. It's this double. It was very complicated.
Right.
I'm a lawyer. I want you to teach me how to influence juries. I'm a company who sells alcohol, and I want you to teach me how to market to children.
Oh, really? No.
These
Wow.
kinds of
Interesting.
offers, sort of are coming, and I began to, I didn't. There's some. I don't take obviously these projects, but the fact that they're asking, is interesting in a way. Like people want to take this skill of influence and use it for personal gain and for this and for that. But there's also people who came to me because I put out before I even wrote the book. I said after Magic Words, I sent an email out to all my readers and I said, who do you need to influence and why?
Right.
And one of the most interesting ones is one of the first chapters in this book is a guy who said, I need to influence my town to fund school renovation because our children are dealing, these kids they're dealing with like heat stroke, there's no air conditioning, there's health concerns, there's code issues, there's just no facilities. It's been over 50 years. Every other district around us in the state has made major renovations or replaced. I need to get a stubborn committee, a stubborn town, a stubborn, set in their ways group of people. I need to influence them to build a new school for our kids.
That's
for our
ethical.
community.
That's ethical.
Right? So but it's not just an ends justify the means sort of ethical.
Okay.
There is also a procedural sort of ethical as well. And I just started collecting these stories. I documented his results, and he ended up getting 961 out of 981 votes in favor to go for the school, and they ended up building a $96.4 million school.
That sounds like another book you could put together of all the people that have taken your insights and how they've used it for
how
good.
they've applied it, right?
Why couldn't you do
and
that?
a lot of that is this book. A lot of the chapters are specific stories of how people applied influence in impossible situations. I want to know, how does the hostage negotiator? So I talked to the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. How do you get somebody who's dead set on committing a horrible crime or harming themselves? How do you get that person off the ledge?
Never Split the Difference, that guy?
That guy, yeah.
Okay.
Chris Voss is his name.
Yep, okay.
And I talked to, a person who was hijacked on a bus and how one word was able to diffuse the situation. One officer came in, it's been escalating, and this second officer came in, spoke one word and diffused the situation. I talked to a guy who teaches 6th grade students ballroom dancing. So he has to convince the cootie-ridden, how are you going to get this person to interact and physically touch hands to the cootie gender.
Yeah.
And it's everything in that. It seems like impossible situation. So that is sort of how the book started. But I realized, the difference between the people who are using this for good, the people who are using these influence strategies or other influence strategies for their selfish reasons, it wasn't just a difference in the outcome that they wanted. It was a difference in the process that they used. I started to wonder, after all these offers are coming across my desk, are there good people? Is the bottom line truly just dollars and cents, and the golden rule doesn't matter anymore?
Right.
Is, like we said at the end of the last, is it outdated?
Right.
Sure. Because of business success is taking precedence. We've got to meet our quarterly results. We've got to, and there's pressures from all different directions. When is the moment you let the ethical piece go?
Right.
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 And as a magician, talking ethics, it seems like I've had book reviews and newspapers and stuff. The New York Times even was like, as a magician, teaching ethics like this guy who lies for a living.
That's funny.
You know?
Yeah, no.
So again, it's sort of figuring out where is the line, not only for as I'm teaching, but where's my own personal line? Like what does it mean? What does it mean to have ethical influence?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be a person who where influence isn't an action that they do, influence is a trait that they have?
It's who they are.
You know?
You're right.
And how do you sort of, where is the line?
Right.
And what I found when I asked the question, do nice guys truly finish last? Do nice guys truly finish last? Does the ethical person lose?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really survival of the fittest? And you know, is it really all? And come to find out, it is survival of the fittest.
Mm-hmm.
But as it turns out, being more ethical actually makes you more fit to survive.
Oh, okay.
Nice guys, Adam Grant says nice guys do finish last, but they also finish first.
What does he mean by that?
What he means is, in his book, Give and Take,
Mm-hmm.
there's givers, there's takers, there's matchers. There's people who will give first.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who only take for themselves, and
Right.
there are people who, I'm going to wait to see what you do first.
And that's a matcher?
And I'll match, right,
Okay.
and that's a matcher. And he studied these people, who's more successful.
So what are you? Are you a giver, taker, matcher? I mean, a combination?
So I think I'm probably a combination
Okay.
giver matcher.
Okay.
Like I have these giver tendencies with matcher practicality
Okay.
beat into me. I would probably say,
Okay,
remember
yeah.
my
That-
practical father, practical.
That makes sense.
Straight-laced sort of. You know, the golden rule was. Do unto others as they have done unto you,
Mm-hmm.
right? In some variations of the golden rule that can be humorous. Do unto others before they do unto you.
Right,
You know, there's
sure.
all sorts of variations
Sure.
and different philosophies. But I'm somewhere in this giver by nature, matcher by nurture.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
And but what he says is, after doing all these studies of success, who's more successful in the workplace, who makes more money, who's more successful objectively with happiness studies, with this and that, positionally in the workplace, thousands of people, meta-analysis, all sorts of crazy research. He says the givers at the bottom of the pile.
The bottom, as far as what, success?
The bottom of the success pile.
Oh.
Yeah. But when he looked to see who's at the top, it was the givers again.
Now, how is that? It sounds like an oxymoron.
It does, right?
Yeah.
So certainly highly recommend his book. I addressed a little bit of it in I call it Nice Chapters Finish Last. It's literally the very last chapter of the book, and it sort of is a summary of everything. But you know, what ends up happening is the givers who are always and only giving 100%, others first, no time, no energy left over for me, turn into doormats. They get
Right.
trampled on, they get taken advantage of.
Sure,
Right?
makes sense.
But there are givers who balance it and have a sort of giver mindset, giver practices, but they balance it. They take care of themselves. You know, it's not in a taker manner, but you know, they balance it, and they rise to the top. He says, in a short-term battle, takers win. In a long game, givers win.
Okay.
Right? And I don't know about you, but the long game is what interests me. The
Sure.
long term is where all the good stuff is. You know, the best things in life are the long games things.
Right. It's
you
like
know?
the marshmallow test.
It's like the marshmallow
yeah,
test,
yeah,
right?
where you put things off. Yeah, you can
Right.
delay gratification.
So it was interesting to find out that being a giver, being an ethical, and there's other aspects to ethics other than just being a giver, right? There's other components to it, but that piece and others really just painted the picture that ethical influence is not a disclaimer. Oh, just please only use this for good because it'll make me feel better, right?
Right, sure.
It's not just a disclaimer. It's not just it'll make you feel good. It truly makes you a more influential human being. Like the evidence is in, the results are in, the game is won by the givers, and that was a huge sigh of relief in many ways for me. It allowed me to again to double down on this piece called ethical influence, which I think is a term that's certainly bandied about and overused, sometimes trivialized. especially the ethical piece. It just sort of gets tagged on.
Sure.
You know. So it's a fascinating sort of journey through all these different stories. With Magic Words, I looked at a lot of science, a lot of research, a lot of numbers, and it's very. There's a lot of citations in Magic Words.
It kind of reminds me of Cialdini's work in the sense that he talks about if you want something, give something first. He uses
sort of the reciprocity.
Yeah,
piece.
so
Sure.
it kind of reminds me of that as well.
Yeah, and some of my work is compared to that. I did interview Robert Cialdini for this book. Yep.
Yeah. What was he like? Very academic, scholarly. I listened to him. I've read his book.
It was during the launch of his book Persuasion.
Oh yeah.
I was writing for Huffington Post at the time, and I did I included him in a feature.
Okay.
So, but as part of that, kind of all right, off the record. What's really going on? Like, what do you really think? How do you really believe? What do you really feel? And he was very generous.
That's
certainly
nice.
very generous with his time. He was very generous with his knowledge and his information. There were never a feeling of secrets being withheld or the good stuff being pulled back in any way. Certainly very academic, knows his stuff inside and out, and the vibe of again similar to Magic Words, academic, scientific, research-based. With Flip and with True Influence, I wanted it to be more applied.
Right.
In fact, one of the titles we tossed around was, instead of True Influence, Applied Influence.
Okay.
Really seeing this stuff, how it plays out in the real world. How does it play out, not just saying one word to one person one time, but how does it play out when you've got a group of sixth graders, and you've got a whole season of ballroom dancing that you have, and how do you establish and maintain relationships between yourself and them, and rapport and influence on a lasting scale?
Sure.
Right? And how does that work in the real world?
Well, doesn't a lot of it have to do with trust? Doesn't it have to do with people, whether they like you and trust you and want to, isn't that part of the equation?
Yeah, one of the things that I talk about in this book is I went on YouTube and I typed in giving away free money, and I found hundreds of videos of people trying to give away free money to strangers on the street.
Yes, I've seen them.
What better deal is there than here's a $10 bill? Mm-hmm. Do you want to take?
No, I don't.
I don't.
Yeah.
Because we evaluate each other on two frequencies, right? There's the sort of the are you capable? Are you what's the word I'm looking for? Are you I guess are you an expert? Do you know your stuff?
Right.
Are you
competent?
Competent. Thank you. The
Okay.
competency scale.
All right.
And the second one is, are you trustworthy?
Yes.
And that's actually backwards. They actually start with trust. The trust filters
first.
are kicking.
Oh, sure. It's
right?
a survival thing. You're going to hurt me or help me. That's
Correct.
Yeah,
And that's once again deep in the brain, where we always, where we always find the roots of our behavior.
Sure,
It's
makes sense.
rooted in the brain and how the brain works and how the brain has learned to work and survive throughout the years. So yeah, there's certainly some evidence to back a lot. There's a lot of research on the competency and the trust channels.
So
and
when
how
you-
we evaluate
so when you
each
walk
other.
out on
trust is not just a big. It's half at least.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you walk on stage, because you do lectures, gigs all over the world, speaking events, you know that you have to win the attention, the interest,
Sure.
and they have to know that you're an expert.
Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you?
4 levels.
Let's talk about it.
4 levels.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I think, the 4 levels of influencing people, I use the word true as a mnemonic to remember.
Okay.
TRUE, 1 for each level.
Okay.
T stands for technique.
Technique.
So the words you say, the gestures you make, the phrases, the incentives, this is what people usually want to know about. This is why I'm excited about this conversation, because usually when I'm doing radio interviews or podcast interviews or TV or whatever, people are asking me, tell me the technique, tell me the magic word that
trick.
motivates 93% of people.
The trick, yeah.
Give me that technique.
Right.
And it really is it's only the first tier.
Okay.
It's important.
Right.
It's like, if you want to do calculus, you probably should know how to do arithmetic. You've got to have good technique. Even Oprah could get on television and use the worst technique in the world and still create influence,
Because she's
because
got a
she
following.
has the other 3 levels.
Okay, what are those?
And that's why I call it a hierarchy. I would call it the true hierarchy of influence. Influence has a hierarchy. There's one level, but there's a level above it that trumps it. So R stands for relationship.
Okay.
Relationship. Is there a
Right.
pre-existing relationship? And once again, mom was going to buy Girl Scout cookies from her daughter, even though she might have got them cheaper at Walmart.
Right.
Because there's a relationship.
Exactly.
Right? The facts, the objective, it's cheaper, techniques don't matter, relationship trump. You're going to do business with Uncle Jim and his used car lot, even if he doesn't have the best techniques, he seems a little sleazy, but he's Uncle Jim, you're going to, right? Our late great friend Eric Paul, another magician turned motivational speaker, used to have a great line. He said, all things being equal, people do business with who they know, like, and trust.
Right. Right.
All things not being equal, people do business with who they know, like, and trust.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
So the relationship trumps the technique.
Sure.
It's the next level up. If you find yourself frustrated in the workplace, and I get this all the time. I get leaders, they're coming to my leadership seminars. As a leadership speaker, I deal a lot with leaders. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I get feedback from my message, and they'll say things like, why do I have to learn this stuff? They get paid to do what I say.
Yeah.
They should just do it.
But they're not motivated by that.
Right? And I'm like, well, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
And they're the ones, the leaders are the ones who are frustrated at the end of the day. They're drained, and it's an unwillingness to prioritize relationship, to create rapport relationship, a healthy workplace leadership type-based relationship.
But don't you think the old motto is from the school system? Sit down, don't talk, do what I tell you, and that's the old way of doing business. And then you take that into today's workplace. I don't think it works anymore.
Well, there's a whole new workforce flooding the workplace who has had a different approach. And not sit down, shut up, do your job, get the right answer. It's here's a trophy for 5th place.
How does that work?
So,
as far as business.
It creates an incredible amount of frustration. The generation gap is getting wider and wider.
It is.
And that's just the nature of an accelerating society. We're just, in every way, we are accelerating, and the gap gets bigger. It just gets deeper and wider, which is all the more reason where we develop, this is why these skills are the new advantage in the workplace. This is what gives you the competitive edge. Other organizations aren't thinking about how do you create, they are now with customer experience and customer relationship, and they're starting to figure this stuff out. But once again, we're only at tier 2 now. We're only at tier 2.
So we've covered technique and relationship. What's the next one?
U stands for understanding.
Okay.
Understanding. You could have a great relationship with someone, hit it off with someone just instantly, instant rapport, but have no idea how or why. You may think, oh, we have lots of things in common, but sometimes even somebody just walks into a room and you just get a vibe from that person. You're like, I want to meet that person or whatever. So understanding is what allows us, and what allows someone like the hostage negotiator, who's not going to hit it off easily with this deranged criminal in some cases, in many cases. There's not going to be a lot of natural rapport there, especially with a diametrically opposed goal set of those two individuals. So understanding is what allows us to create relationship rather than just fall into it, right?
Okay.
It allows us to understand how and why people what they do, and that is a way of creating influence. You can reverse engineer and create relationship. You can sort of reverse engineer, well, I know the human brain processes words this way. So for example, if I teach you the magic words, it just seems like a list.
Yes.
But when you read the book, now they're tools, because now you have the understanding.
Right.
Influence is the same way. Understanding human beings is the next tier.
How's it any different from empathy, understanding? Is it the same?
Because it is and it isn't. Empathy is a piece of understanding an individual, but there's these tiers of understanding as well. There are levels of understanding. You can understand and be empathetic with an individual and get that person and understand. I understand how you're feeling.
Right.
I understand why you would engage in this wildly irrational behavior right now. I can see why you're throwing a temper tantrum. It's because you feel undervalued.
Right.
I can understand that. Whether I agree with it is another thing, but I can understand it. But there's also different levels of understanding, because you may understand an individual well in America, and then you travel, and suddenly your empathy radar is way off because there are cultural differences.
There are, for sure.
So, there's just, again, all these different sort of levels of understanding, and it comes down to, psychologists say this all the time. They're like, I learned a lot about the human brain, I learned a lot about the human condition, I started to understand people, and it robbed me of my ability to get angry at them.
Really?
Because I understand now why they do this or why they do that. And it's no longer an anger trigger.
That's good.
I'm no longer aggravated and doesn't that take away stress from your life?
It's like being a stoic.
In many ways, right?
Yeah.
So once again, as understanding goes up, right, stress comes down.
Makes sense.
As understanding goes up, because you're less stressed, you're certainly more able to tap into technique. You're certainly more able to have better relationships with people. So tiers build on one another.
Sure.
So this understanding tier is the third level. But once again, we're starting to get into places where almost nobody goes.
I bet.
Very, very few people truly understand human beings and how they work. The human brain is the most complicated and complex object in the known universe. Human behavior is absurdly complex and confusing. So, it's a rare person who can not just hit it off and have a good relationship with this person, but with all people.
So what's the next level?
So the fourth and final tier, the highest tier, sort of the this trumps all others, was a shock to me, right? It's TRUE, and E stands for ethics.
Ethics, okay.
It's the whole, back to that ethical piece, right?
Yeah.
So once again, the question is not, can you be ethical and influential? The answer is it's impossible not to. Once again, they go hand in hand. One sort of washes the other, and without that ethical approach, you're really shooting yourself in the foot, taking a short-term marshmallow, sacrificing the benefit for later.
So Tim, I'm sure people are going to want to get this book. I don't know if they're going to spend $200 for this book.
I hope they don't.
They just get this book, or maybe Magic Words. It changed my life. I got to meet you and become friends. How do folks find you, follow you on social media? What's your website? I'm sure they're going to want to reach out to you.
Sure, happy to. I think the easiest place is the internet now.
Okay.
I mean, it's a really simple way to start and engage with a conversation. I still read and respond. I can't say that. I still read every email that I get from readers. I don't always, respond to all of them. Social media is hit or miss, but the website is timdavidspeaks.com. That's really the home base. You'll find all the social media, the contact information, links to the books, and training programs and things like that along the way as well.
And so when you're not speaking, when you're not writing books, you're with your family and your children, what do they think of all of this work? They say, Dad, don't be using this stuff on us. How does that work out in real life?
My kids are probably too young. It's always been there. It's not like it's nothing new for them.
Right.
But I will tell you this. Nobody has ever said to me, how dare you try to understand me better? Nobody has ever said to me, how dare you try to give to my life in an ethical manner.
Wow.
And I think there's a responsibility when you have the skill of influence, when you have the that knowledge. You got to use it.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's something that you wrote in my book, but I have to mirror it back to you. You're a good guy, and you're academic, you care, and you're making a difference, and I know you gave us something to think about. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being on the show.
Good. Would love to hear from people who agree. I think there's too many people that I run into who disagree with the ethical approach. So certainly, absolutely reach out and let me know how you feel.
We will catch you next time on Mindful Conversations. I'm here with Tim David. Reach out to him, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye, everybody.